Podcast, the Everyday Leadership Podcast. So as we wait for Sope to come on, I want you to be thinking about some of the questions you could have asked. Oh, here he is. Here he is. Sope, my bro. How are you doing, man?
I am blessed. It's a pleasure, absolute honor to be here tonight, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, we wanted you to come in and make an entrance, and you already have, man. It's such a blessing to have you. We're so grateful to have you, and I am super excited for the great things God is going to teach us through you when it comes to this topic, the model man. But before any of that, some people are looking at you. They're like, okay, who's this? Who's this young man? Who's this young man? Who's this young man on the screen right now? Who's this young man? Talk to us. Tell us, please, sir. Who are you? And tell us even a bit, if you'd like, about what you do. Please let us know.
Yeah, so I am husband. I'm a husband of 14, 15 years, father of 2 kids. And I'm a founder as well. So I run a company called Mindset Shift, which is a leadership development company, which is focused on leading, developing leaders and disrupting cultures and organizations, because that needs to change. And I also have a podcast, which you talked about, Everyday Leadership, where I talk to different leaders leading in completely different industries all around the world on their leadership, on their journey, on how they came up, on their struggles, just keeping it real, just getting away from the fluff and just getting straight to the root of how did they get to where they got to in their companies, organizations, whatever they're doing. That's what I do.
Wow, so you're heavily in this leadership space. You're heavily, even I would argue the word, this pioneering space, where you're literally disrupting the culture. You are shifting mindsets, right? You see what I did there? You're shifting mindsets. And to do that, it is not easy. But to do that, you need to be a model. Now, as you know, sir, we're dealing with the theme of the model man. Would you please break down for us from your perspective? It's a question we've asked of all of our guests. Would you break down for us from your perspective? What would you say is the defining feature of the model man?
For me, the defining feature of the model man comes down to authenticity. That is the key. That's the root. That's the foundation. That's who you are at your core. Because when you are authentic, everything else just kind of falls into place. When you are authentic, you can easily model the right behaviors, the right attitude, the right approach, the right communication, the right vulnerability, the right everything. You can easily do that when you do from a place of authenticity, because that's where everything stems from.
Okay, all right. So you're saying authenticity. But what's authenticity without a story? Would you please tell us, like, for you, like, talk to us, because again, like for many of us, it's the first time. Some of us, it might be the first time where we're actually hearing a man say, no, you've got to be your authentic self in order to disrupt culture, in order to change mindsets, to shift them, to have a shift in thinking. Could you just talk us through your own story anecdotally? What helped you to come? How have you learned this lesson of authenticity?
I think my story goes way back to when I was at secondary school.
I don't worry, Doc. We got time. We got time.
You know, and I had what on the outside could look like a great life. I had a group of friends. I was doing what I was doing. Just living life, you know what I mean? Like over there doing all that kind of stuff. But in reality, on the outside, it was all good. On the inside, it wasn't. And the inside, I was sad. I had so much thought of negativity surrounding my mentality. I was depressed. While out on the outside, go to school, do all that kind of stuff, go home and just close my door, put some slow jams on, just write like it was those kind of things. Because the reason why that was for years, especially during my teenage years, I was living a life that on the outside didn't match my inside. There were so many things I was battling with and struggling with, which I felt I couldn't share with those who were around me, because they wouldn't understand. But more importantly, if I did, I might lose my friends. If I did, I might lose the popularity. I might lose the crowd. I might lose the fake status I built up in my head. But it came to a head at that point when I was 15, when I was like, I couldn't carry on this way, because I felt like I was breaking. Like there was a lack of congruence between the external life and the internal. there was a real lack of integrity and authenticity about how I was showing up in the world. And that's where I was like, I really need to change things. And I just, when I was like 15, me and like one day finally I just came home. I just like had enough. And for like probably 2 hours, me and God were going back and forth. Like I was just honest, like, why am I like this? Why am I going through this? Why have you made me? And we were just like battling me. And it's like, God, you know, God's like, you have this kind of conversation, and God's like, no, my friend, you just keep on going. When you get there, you know what I mean? When you get there, you get there. But eventually I did. And I kind of ended the last statement I said to myself was, actually, I'm worried about people I'm calling friends. If they were real friends, they'll accept me for who I am. If they don't accept me for who I am, they're not friends, they're acquaintances. And are there really people I want to have in my life? When I think about relationships, I want to have real relationships, real connections with people, not stuff that's built on sand. Effectively, the Bible talks about when you build a house on sand, it's going to fall apart. I wanted stuff that was going to last, people I could rely on, people I could depend on. But for me to do all of that, I had to become the real me. I had to show the world the real me. And there's a quote I heard years ago. I don't remember who said it. It was like, be so completely yourself that everyone else feels safe to be themselves. Now, when we talk about being the model man, that's what it is. It's you're modeling a behavior that everyone around you starts to embody because you have shown them that it's okay to be you. So I had to go through my journey and start to own myself, own my confidence, own my self-awareness, own my integrity, and put that out into the world and saying, okay, this is how I'm going to start turning up from now on. Now, if you want someone like that, who wants someone like me, then we can roll together. We can be in the same circle. If you're not about that life, then that's cool. We're going to go our separate paths. Now, that wasn't necessarily easy and it just happened overnight. But once I made that choice and made that decision, that's how things started to change. And I actually got a lot more clearer because I had spent so much time and energy performing to the world. I spent so much time and energy performing to the crowd. I didn't have enough mental capacity to understand, you know, these are your gifts, your talents. This is how you can make an impact. This is how you can be an example to other people. It was more, I need to perform because if I don't do this, these people aren't going to like me anymore. Once I got rid of all of that, things began to shift and change. Because I'm like, right, I'm actually good at listening. I'm good at asking questions. People have come to me for years about these particular topics. Why is that? I had that time to be able to like sit with myself, understand myself, and then start to show up and model a particular set of behaviors to the world.
Wow. Already there are being gems dropped. You know what I love? That was so powerful. And I love the fact that your story really encapsulated that and how you circled back around and it really hit home for me. Be so yourself, right? That others can be themselves around you. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me because I mean, it really is true. It's a similar thing we see where people are like, be so vulnerable that other people are able to be vulnerable around you. You feel what I'm saying? Like that is something that, I mean, for me, that's not a paradigm shift, but I think for a lot of people it would be because it's something that we see play out for so many other people. I think that's powerful. But if we could sort of make it even more personal than it already is, if you don't mind me, if you don't mind me asking, which I'm trust that you don't. How were you different, sir, to the people around you?
I was different in the sense that a lot of people around me were not. They were churchgoers, but they weren't Christians.
Jesus, help me in this place.
So there's a difference there. And I think that's where it plays out. Where you know you can go to church on a Sunday. You can be there physically. You tick that box. You're all good. But the way that you're living, the lifestyle that you live, the language, the friends, all of that kind of stuff, two polar opposites. There is no, like, someone can see, be like, right, is it the same person? But my lifestyle and the way I wanted to pattern my behavior, I wanted that to be in alignment. I wanted my relationship to be incongruous. I want to be like, you know what? I'm not just reading this Bible, I'm living it. Because a lot of times we talk about the Bible as a living word. That means it's supposed to be living inside of you because you're that word.
Mm.
So if you're not living the word, are you just reading the word? What's the point? There's so much time we can accumulate knowledge, but there's a difference between having knowledge and having wisdom. There are a lot of people that have knowledge, but there are not a lot of people that have wisdom because they're not applying nothing. There are people who are scholars out there and they can quote you every single verse in the Bible, but then you look at their lives and what you're modeling, it ain't it. It's a whole different script that you're modeling. So that's what it was for me. I was like, those people I was with, and that in that time is like, this is not really how I want to be. I know the background I've come from. I know the house that I've come from. I know the different principles I've been instilled with me. And for time, I was battling against those principles. And it was like those principles against the world. It was like the reality of living as a Christian, having a proper relationship with God, and just living for the appearance of being a Christian. And I didn't want that battle anymore. I wanted everything to kind of just come together so I can be my one self rather than two different people. No more Jekyll and Hyde, just reality.
Yeah.
That's where it was. When that coming together happened, I found peace. Like there was indescribable peace and it was funny because for time I thought if I do this, I'm gonna be alone and it's gonna be so much worse and blah 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 blah. All those kind of thoughts, they just went away. The reality was so different from the fears that came when that initial thought process started. And that's what happens when I talk about authenticity being the root of it. When you are authentic, there is a natural insight because you're like, you know what, I'm not doing this for other people. I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this because this is how I've been, in a sense, born, and how I've been created to live, to exist, to relate to other people. And by me doing more and more of this, I feel at peace with myself. But not just that, you open up to other people because people like, there is something about that person that I just can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is, but there's something different about that person. Now that difference that scared me previously now made me stand out in a positive way. And people want to know, why is that? Why are you different? Why do you think different? Why do you act differently? Why you ask different questions? Because now I was operating from my own place of authenticity, not trying to be like anyone else. And the problem we have is we live in a world where everyone is trying to be like everyone else. Everyone's trying to perform like everyone else. And we let the fear of being our authentic selves stop us because we think we're going to stand out. But we do want to stand out, but we can stand out for the right reasons. That's how you begin to shine. That's how you begin to model the right behaviors to the rest of the world.
Goodness me, that is crazy. I'll tell you why that's crazy as well, because even as you're thinking, like I'm speaking about the model that the world gives. And the model that the world gives is telling everybody to become the same, and everyone's becoming the same in order to stand out. And they're literally, it's defeating the purpose. And then here you are literally saying, you know, I'm not going to be like the world's model. I just want to be authentically who God has created me to be. And I know that there's another area that's very important to you. And it sounds like it's intermingled with what you're speaking about. When you're saying authenticity, it sounds like you're also saying, or it sounds like what you're saying is, I want to be on the inside who I display myself to be on the outside. And that reminds me of this other passion area I think is an area for you that you really are passionate about, is integrity. That from beginning to end, from head to toe, inside and outside, you are exactly what you say you are. Do you mind sort of speaking about that turmoil? Because the turmoil that led you to becoming, by God's grace, the integral man that you are. Because I think loads of Christian men, especially if they're new to the faith, are struggling with that too. Even those who've been in the faith for a while, to maintain integrity.
So integrity is hard. Integrity is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. But when you even look at the when I was looking at one of the verses, the Titus 2:7 verse, where it says, then I've even everything set an example by doing what is good in teaching, show integrity and seriousness. Now the word in integrity, the old school word that came from, is like be incorruptible. That you're not, like, regardless of what's happening around you at that point in time, there was a lot of what was the right word to use? There was a lot of crime, a lot of corruption, where guards can get bribed, tax collectors can easily make different things like that, a lot of fines. And it was like, be incorruptible. Don't let the outside world corrupt who you are on the inside. Now, for me, being integrity, it means a lot because I'm like I said, I'm married, and I got married at a very, very young age. I got married at 22, and that was one of the hardest things. In fact, let me even go back. So I met my wife at uni.
Okay.
And when we were 18, 19. Now, those 3 years that we were together were probably one of the hardest periods of my life.
I can imagine.
Are you at uni and you're wilding out? We used to have me and my boys. We created a promotions company, so we used to run raves.
Oh, snap.
So we used to run raves. We used to run house parties. So it's like you're trying to live a life of integrity with my girlfriend at that point in time.
Yeah.
While being a young man in that kind of environment with the freeness.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was hard. So, but then that helped to develop inside of me, like, who do I really want to become? There was a time when my especially in the early days when me and my girlfriend, my wife now, but we broke up for a minute. And I was like what's going on? She's like, you're not serious about this. You're not really about that life. You're not really about proper relationship. You've got the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because you're right now. You're just kind of you're doing what you're doing, and yes, you got a girlfriend, and you're not cheating nothing. But at the same time, the way your behavior is, the way you're coming across, is not that of someone who is serious. There's a lack of integrity about your character. So, and those, like, well, she just said that, and I stepped back and I was like, what are you talking about? I ain't cheated. I ain't done nothing. I could have been doing this. And I was going through that whole thought process, and I was like, actually, let me be real with what she just told me, and let me be real with myself. When she says those words to me, she has a level of respect that she has for herself that she's not willing to tolerate and put up with my rubbish and my mess.
Come on.
So there's some truth to this. And I'll say the words from 1 Corinthians, when he talks about, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away the child who is behind me. Those words in 1 Corinthians 13:11 came back into my mind. I'm like, if I'm gonna say I am a man and I'm gonna step up, I need to let go of my childish ways. Now, my childish ways for me means I need to have integrity with my relationship with my partner, and that means I need to be 100% in. But I had to come to that realization inside of me that, you know what, you're acting like a boy. You're not truly living in alignment, complete alignment to everything. So I'm like, let me step my game up. And that's how that integrity kind of came about inside of me. I'm like, okay, I need to man up. I need to be real with myself. I need to be real with my partner and go all into this. Yes, that didn't mean that everything was easy. Like I said, those 3 years were hard and tough. But by making those key decisions, it became the foundation for our relationship. Because we feel like, actually, okay, together we are committed to have integrity as the cornerstone. We're committed to be authentic as the cornerstone. When I say I'm going to be real with you, I'm going to tell you what's going on with you, and vice versa. We start to build those foundations to place. So when it came about, when people are like, why'd you get married at 22? I'm like, so I just spent 3 years with my girl. What was the hardest periods of my life, trying to go to navigate all of that? Yeah, I know who she is. She knows who I am. Why am I wasting my time to then go out there and wild out when I've built something and this person's helped me grow and mature and step up? Integrity for me means I'm making that commitment to you because we've been on that journey, and vice versa. And that's how a lot of things, again, started to grow and shape for me as a man. Because when I modeled integrity from that decision I made from day dot, it made an even fundamental difference to her. Because she was like, in her house and things that she had seen on that kind of stuff, she was used to men acting a certain way. When I made that commitment to myself and I started showing up a particular way, she's like, that's different. There's something about you that is different. There's something about you that I couldn't even see before. But now that you have stepped up, and now that you are being authentic, now you're got integrity, and I can actually see it. You don't talk about it. I can see it through your examples. It makes such a massive difference. And other people around me were having conversations like, "Raw, like, why are you locking it down the way you're locking it down? Why are you shut the way you're showing up?" Again, and bear in mind, we still got this promotions company. We're still doing the house parties and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But people are still seeing that actually the way I'm approaching things are now slightly different. Now they have questions. And that's what I talk about when you're modeling a particular behavior. People will have questions. People will see things. People want to know, why are you doing what you do? Because it's not the norm. It is not the same thing as everyone else is doing. And that's how you now begin to influence even more people. Because the more curious they get, the more questions they have, the more answers you can give them, and the more you now get that cycle going.
Man, do you know what I really love about that? I just want to hone in on something really quickly, is the fact that, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, there are many things that probably need to be in place in terms of your own character, your own being, your own spirit or soul before you're ready to get married, right?
Yes.
But I think one of the things that is crucial is authenticity. I hope, brothers, that we see from what Sope is saying that if Sope was not authentic to who he actually is, to make the decision to get married at 22 would probably have been much harder, because now he would have the fear of, oh, this woman is going to see me for what I actually am. But being the authentic man that he was, and having the identity and the integrity that he had to even be able to make that decision, I think helped to position him to make the decisions that only a man can make, which was to get married. It's not a boy that gets married, it's a man that gets married. So I think it really speaks to the fact that if we want to act like men, as we've dealt with in the past, that 412 men, if we want to act like men, you have to have the mentality of a man. And part of that is this authenticity and this integrity that Chopin was just speaking about. But I have a different question for you, Chopin. I want to switch things slightly, right? So you do the Everyday Leadership podcast. And there's one thing that some successful leaders really struggle with. It's called imposter syndrome. Now, speaking about authenticity and accepting who you are on the inside and then living that out. Now, being your authentic self, you've gotten your success. And now, because of whatever, you're like, maybe this isn't because of me. Maybe this is because of something else. I'm not who everybody thinks me to be, even though that is authentically who you are. The success proves it. How do we be authentic and deal with imposter syndrome, where we're being authentic, we're being ourselves, but we don't believe it? Does that kind of make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Imposter syndrome. It's funny that you asked that question, because that's a topic I've dealt with a lot this this week actually, around imposter syndrome. And it shows up in all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're authentic or not. It doesn't matter how successful you are or not. It shows up in all of us. And there are a lot of leaders who are running multi-million companies who it shows up with, and they're like, I don't feel worthy. I feel like someone's going to turn up the next day and tell me and say that I'm a fraud and take all this away from me. And it drives people, in a sense, it stops them. That's what imposter syndrome primarily does. It stops them from progressing. It stops them from achieving and doing certain things, and it keeps them stuck and it keeps them grounded. But one of the things when I work with clients effectively as well is, when you talk about imposter syndrome, there's a feedback loop that tends to happen. I'll give you an example using myself. So a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to speak at a conference, and this was a bunch of leaders and academics. And it was academics from around the world. So you had people from Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, all that kind of stuff. And I was excited when I got asked. The night before, my wife's like, "How do you feel?" I was like, I'm scared. She's
Mm.
like, this is always my wife, like, she called him out of her hands how many times. She's like, oh, what are you talking about? I was like, you know what? When I think about the fact I'm going to go speak in front of a number of people who are older than me, who have a lot of letters behind their name, all that kind of stuff, I'm like, why? Why did they want to hear from me? What if I got to say, like, these people are supposed to smarter than me? They got years of
Mm.
experience than me. Why? Like, literally, that was how I felt.
Mm.
And that's what imposter syndrome does. It limits you. It's like, why? Who cares what you have to say? You are not good enough. You are not
Mm.
strong enough. You don't have the right experience. You don't have the right to show up to that place. You don't have the
Mm.
right to show up to that job, to that relationship. That's what imposter syndrome is. You are
Wow.
an imposter. You are a fraud. Those are the feelings that come up. But a
Mm.
lot of times we get stuck there. We don't close the feedback loop. Because then
Mm.
in that instance, my wife was like, so what are you going to do? I'm like, that's how I feel. However, they've asked me to speak because they want to hear my side of things. They've asked me
Mm.
to speak because my experiences are different to theirs. They've asked me to speak because the way I show up is going to be different to them. Even though they are older than me, they have more letters to their name. There is a difference and uniqueness and different perspective that I bring to the floor. So therefore, I'm going to do there and do my best me. I can't
Mm.
perform for them. I can't presume to know what's going to go on in their head. All I can do is go there and be me. And I'm going
Yeah.
to work on being the best me. I'm going to practice being the best me and just do that. And whatever happens after that, happens after that.
Mm.
That was the me closing the feedback loop, because when we get imposter syndrome, you have to replace that with something else. It's
Mm.
what's in your thought pattern, what are you feeding your mind? And that's why a lot of times it's so important to what you actually feed your mind with on a regular basis.
Mm.
Because if all you fed your mind with is, what a better word, like it's ratchetness. When you get negative thoughts come up, it's just going to keep on going and going and going, because
Mm.
there's nothing to combat the negative with the positive. There's nothing to say that actually I feel fear, I feel afraid, but I know that I can. They want me for a reason. I know I've been called for a reason, and you need,
Mm.
that's where the feedback loop comes into place. So me saying that I know why I am there, I went past that imposter syndrome that did come up for me, but went back into closing the feedback loop. I
Mm.
slept like a baby, woke up the next
Come on.
day, did my prayers, went to the thing, did what I had to do. They absolutely loved it. And,
Mm.
their response was like, this is why I wanted you, because the way that you look at things is from your own unique perspective. But I
Mm.
could have stayed stuck and then gone up and started stuttering because I was still all up in my head. And
Mm.
when you're all up in your head, you're making it, in a sense, in that instance, for example, about you. When it wasn't about me. It was just about me just sharing and making an impact and operating from my authentic self. And
Mm.
it's those kind of things that when you talk to leaders, it's like, okay, what can we do to close the feedback loop? What's happening? What's showing up for you when you're feeling like an imposter? What are the feelings that you're feeling? Why are you feeling the way that you're feeling? Let's close. Once they learn to close the feedback loop, then I'll slowly start learning. Again, this happened overnight, learning how to deal with imposter syndrome. So when it does come up, which it naturally would, because it doesn't ever go away, you can then get rid of it and you can focus on the task at hand rather than focus on imposter syndrome.
Come on, Sope, man. Come on, bro. Come on, big bro. You're spitting facts right here. You're literally spitting facts. I want to touch on something that you mentioned. You said you you were able to focus on the facts on you said your calling,
Mhm.
right? Now, perhaps there you may have just been referring to, the calling you received, as in come and speak with us now. But you did mention before we came on air, you were talking about knowing your calling and things like that. Would you speak to that a little bit as a part of the authenticity piece?
Yeah, I think for me, my calling has always been around unlocking I'm guessing the potential, the skills, the gifts, the talents that God has given to us. And I have a thing around seeing people live mediocre lives. I have a thing around seeing people exist rather than live.
Mm.
And I want to see us live. I want to see us thrive. I want to see us operate from our skill set that we have. And all that for me goes back into what we're talking about, being authentic. Because for so long, when we look at life, either it's culture, whether it's a system, whatever you wanna put out there, there's been different reasons as to why we can't do what we need to do. But when we learn to shift our mindset and operate from a different perspective, we thrive. It's like great example that I always go back to in my head was Joseph. Joseph had a dream, but he had obstacle after obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and easily my man could be like, "This dream ain't never gonna happen. Like, why does God keep on giving me these dreams?"
Yeah.
But from his journey, he went all the way to the second highest echelon in the land, making a difference and an impact not only to Egypt but to the whole world by saving them from famine. That's someone operating from the gift place. Now, I feel all of us, in our way, shape, or form, are like him. We all have different things that we've been called to give to this world. And the more we can do that, the more impact we can make. So prior to me doing what I'm doing right now, I worked in corporate and started off and then led in completely different teams. But even though my core, so I started off as chartered accountant and went into other areas. But at my core of everything was never about numbers. It was about people. It was about people grow. I found that I could connect with a lot of people who were 10, 15 years older than me, who were the people in my teams. Now, on paper, there was no reason whatsoever. We had nothing, absolutely nothing in common.
Yeah.
But at the core, they were human beings who just wanted someone to ask the question, like, what do you want? What are you trying to achieve in life? And then have someone to help them to put the systems in place to help them to get where they need to get to. And that's what my focus was. I focused on helping those in my immediate team, those who were senior to me, to achieve the different things they wanted for themselves personally. And then I gave back into the organization and create high-performing teams, help businesses grow, all that kind of stuff. But all that came from the individual. So now I'm like, okay, leaders are the ones who make a lot of key decisions that impact a lot of people. So what can I do to have a bigger scope of influence on the wider population? Okay, let's work with leaders. Because if they can get their stuff right, if they can get their culture right, it will have a knock-on impact on people who can turn up in organizations and be themselves and bring their ideas to the forefront and be like, actually, I've got this idea. Can we do this? And that's how you now start to see the growth, the bigger, wider scope of growth. So that's why I do what I do now. And it's also around being an example, being a model to my kids. So years ago, I had a conversation with my son. And he was excited. He was like, "Yeah, Daddy, I want to come and like work where you work," or all that kind of stuff that little kids tend to do.
Yeah.
And I thought about my journey to get to where I got to at that time, at that point in corporate. And I was like, I've been the one of one for so long.
Yeah.
But I don't want that journey for you and for your sister. I don't want that journey for your generation coming up. But I also know that I have a skill set to actually make a difference and make an impact. So I chose to step out of that world and step into this so I can make a different life for them. But for me, that meant me taking a leap of faith, which goes back to leading by example. Because I don't want to ever be the kind of parent that says, oh, you do this, do this, do this. But my kid can be like, but Daddy, you don't do that. I don't want to be the kind of parent that you can point at and be like, every single thing that you're talking about, you're not living. Instead, I want my kids to be able to look at me and be like, Daddy practices what he preaches. Daddy is very action first, the word second. They don't have to hear me talking. They can see me modeling the kind of behaviors I want to see for them, either as a husband, so the way I treat their mother, either as a man, as an individual, the way I show up for myself, either as a parent, or either as a businessman. They can see all those things, different models to me. So that's why I stepped into what I stepped into.
Wow. So you're saying that, as you've grown and as you've gone further in life, as different seasons have come, the need to model well has only increased.
Oh, yes.
Because before it was, I need to, like you said, you're going to model anyway, you're going to influence people anyway. So I need to be authentic for me so that I can be happy. Then it became, I need to be authentic for me and my wife so that we can be happy. Then it became, I need to be authentic for me, my wife, and my kids especially, so that they can be able to basically have a father they can be proud of, and then have a model that they can follow. Somebody who does what they say, and I too therefore must also do what I say. But did you have somebody growing up to whom you looked and you said, this man does what he says? Or is that something that originated, quote unquote, on the inside of you?
I think about that time and time again, and I think to an extent, my dad, he had an impact on me in the way that he handled business, in the way that he handled his life. We never had a conversation about it, but there was something about him that he practiced what he preached. So he was the kind of father that when we read the Bible, we talk about the Bible, and he lived that in his lifestyle. He lived that in the way he showed up as a husband to my mom, the way that he showed up to other people and he cared for other people. So there was some part of him that I think rubbed off on me naturally. I just kind of saw that. And then the rest of it was literally just, I guess, me going through what I went through for myself. It was very much me just wanting to be at peace. Me just wanting to stop the internal battle that was going on. And as I stopped that, and obviously you get older, you get wiser, you start realizing certain things. It just kind of kept on building on and on and on and on from there. Because now you're a lot more open.
Yeah.
You're even not just open to yourself, you're open to other people to be able to give you feedback. Because you're not fronting anymore. I'm not. When people come to you like, oh, you're doing this, because that's not your real self. You don't take it on board. You're like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to change that. But you don't, because you know for a fact, yeah, but I'm only pretending to you. So what you're telling me to change, I really don't. But you don't know that. Whereas as opposed to when I'm now operating as who I am, and people come to me and like, you know what? You've done that, and I really like that. You've done that, and that's been inspiring. Or you've done that, and here's how I felt, and here's the knock-on impact of you making that decision. It makes you stop and think differently. Like, okay, I felt I was showing up to the world in this way.
Yeah,
that's what the world is receiving. Do I need to change something about myself? That's the modeling part that I think a lot of times we don't do that whole retrospective. How am I showing up to the world? Performing to the world. How am I showing up? It's just two completely different things. Performance is just you being like someone else. It's you pretending to be someone else. You showing up is you being your real, open, honest, uncut self.
Come on.
And be like, this is who I am. Now, what are you guys saying? What do you guys see? How do you guys receive me? How do you guys hear me? Do you feel my warmth? Do you feel my love? Do you feel my joy? Do you feel my fear? Do you feel all those things? And if you do, how do you respond? Because so often I feel like we run away from that part because we are scared of the reaction we're going to get.
Come on.
But when we stop and we just stand in who we are and who we've been called to be, we get the fullness, we get the joy, we get the peace, we get the realness, and we get surrounded by love, which starts from within. Because now it's like God is shining on you, but like, no, just go and do you.
Man, just go and do you. I mean, we get that platform to be our authentic selves, and I think that is a great joy. And like you said, you've got that joy, you've got that peace, you've got that ease, so to speak, of not having to impress other people. But can we just keep it real, Sope, real quick? Yeah. Can you speak to us about the pain of the model? And I can break it down if you want me to, but I feel like you just sighing right there tells me you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you don't mind, bro, enlighten us. Let's keep it real. Jesus, he said, hey, listen, you have life eternal, but you gotta deny yourself, pick up that cross and follow me to die. And
You
then
know,
live afterwards, of course. So what's the
it's
pain?
the pain actually starts with something you talk about. It's the denial of a lot of things
Mm,
is not easy. When you're modeling, when you're being a model, when you're putting yourself out there, it's not easy because you are one exposing yourself
mm,
to other people to criticisms, number one. But then there's also that hardship where great example would be when I got married at 22, all my boys, apart from one of them, were living a lifestyle that was like enjoyment. Like you know what I mean?
mm.
That's literally what it was. Like they were, because they were at that point where come out of university, some had some really good jobs opportunities. They were single, earning money, and they were just like traveling here then everywhere, sending pictures. Like yo, whereas I was there like raising a family, broke, like, and that for me was at that point in time that was like raw. That's their lifestyle they live in. And
Mm,
you can very easily look at be like, you're trying to be a modern man out here, but other people are there enjoying lifestyle. Is this really worth it?
mm,
And that's the difficulty of being a modern man. There are going to be times and times on your journey where you're going to ask yourself, is this really worth it? Is
mm,
this really stopping me from being and living like other people?
mm.
What am I getting out of this? Why am I behaving? Why am I living this way? Those are kind of the questions that are gonna show up for you. Where if you don't have good grounding foundation or good friends around you that you can talk to, you're gonna struggle.
Mm.
You're gonna it's just it happens to all of us. You're going to struggle. I mean, like Jesus got tempted. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
struggle, and you will question certain things about being the model.
Mm.
There'll be times when you just ask yourself and you would say, I do not think this is worth it anymore. I think this is holding me back rather than moving me forward. And then you end up a completely different way. Whereas those same people who were there be like, bro, what are you doing getting locked down at that young age? Now they having little kids during lockdown and they're busy telling me how hard it's been. And I'm like, my kids are teenagers. It's been all
Yeah.
right. Like, they did they do what they're doing. Or I'm
Yeah.
like, in a couple of years, my kids are gonna be old enough who will be going to university, whereas you're gonna have younger kids. And my lifestyle is gonna be slightly different to yours. So
Mm.
it's like there is no like right or wrong, but it's so very easy to get wrapped up in a comparison lifestyle that you
Mm.
shift the gaze from who you've been called to be and the life you've been called to be to living and being like other people. And you start comparing your lifestyle to other people, and then that sends you backwards. Being the model man is you're not looking at other people, you're not comparing yourself to other people. You
But
are the
stop
model.
it.
You are
But
the model. You're looking at yourself. That's what
stop it,
model.
bro. Men are competitive, bro. Men
Listen.
are competitive. So I mean that's part of our nature. So I mean what are we supposed to do?
Men are competitive, but the right ones are real. And there's a
Mm,
difference between being competitive and being real. Competition is about ego.
mm.
And ego comes and goes so easily. Like who are you? It's like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates having a competition about who's got the most billions. Like it don't make no difference. And then Elon Musk will come and be like, oh, I've got the most. Like
Mm.
it's if you're always comparing yourself to someone else, or if you're
Yeah.
using your ego as the way that you measure who you are as a man, you're never gonna win. If
Mm.
you're measuring who you are as a man, when it comes to your realness, you're always going to win. When it comes to your authenticity, you're always going to win. Why? Because there's only one you. Only
Mm.
you can do the best you. So you're never going to lose that battle. But with ego, you're always going to lose.
Even when you win, you lose. Even when you with ego, even when you win, you lose.
Mm.
Snap. So the only person that you're competing against, quote unquote, is your own self. It's your own calling. Brothers, I hope that we're like taking this moment to take stock of our own lives. Are we being what we say to others that we actually are? Are we real enough to go to our brothers and be like, you know what, brothers, I don't really feel like watching football. I'm just listen. I'm just gonna keep it real. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I find myself because most guys are interested in football, so I find myself sometimes I'm fronting. I'm like, yeah, I watched the Arsenal game. Yeah, three what Chelsea what 5-3-2 5-0 what? That's crazy. But sometimes that it's just being authentic selves and being like, you know what, like this time I'm good, man. I'm good. And then the thing about being a model is that there's so much comfort for other people who don't fit the mold, quote and unquote, to find you as a malleable mold that they can fit, quote and unquote, because you're being authentic, they can be their authentic selves. Do you know what I'm saying? I wanna quickly pivot into this question that we didn't get to deal with when we were speaking before we came on, which was essentially that you're having to model for models. By dealing with the everyday leadership podcast, you're having to model for models. You're having to help them and empower them to be models for others. Because as they're leading by example. At least that's the hope. So my question is, first of all, could you tell us how long you've been running Mindset Shift? And then also how long you've been doing the everyday leadership podcast. Would you mind breaking that down for us?
Yeah, so the podcast came about last year. Started off in 2019, end of 2019, and then obviously pandemic hit and everything I used to do was all live. So I kind of stopped for a minute and then I kind of relaunched everything at the back in summer last year. And the podcast is basically around interviewing leaders in all around the world around different topics. And effectively, we talk around leading themselves, leading their organizations, and then go into family and business, all that kind of stuff. Is about understanding their journey and what leadership actually means to them. And the reason why I love having those kind of conversations is it's kind of similar to this, where it's an opportunity to get real with people who are running organizations, opportunity to listen to them talk about the struggles and the fears and the anxieties and issues that they have. Because so often we see leaders who either we've held in high esteem, we've seen in media, all that kind of stuff, but we think everything's all good for them. We think they don't deal with nothing. We think they don't have no fears, no insecurities, no imposter syndrome, none of that. But actually they do. They're just human beings just like us. So it's about having that real talk conversation. And then the company itself has been running for a number of years. It's a different one that pivoted into this. And as the reason why I changed it to call it Mindset Shift was I believe our mindset is at the root of everything we do. It's a collection of our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas, our actions, our culture, all those different things kind of come together to make our mindset. Now, when we are going to talk about making a change in our lives, the only thing that's going to help us to shift or to make that change is our mindset. We can start, but we're not necessarily going to finish if we have the wrong mindset in place. If we want to be a great man, if our mindset is not on point, we're going to start, but we're not going to finish. So now it's like, okay, leaders, you want to be real in your organizations. You want to make changes. Sometimes the changes not just in the organizations, in their personal life. You want to make changes in your personal life. All right, let's start with your mindset. Like, what's that foundation that you've built everything on? What are you inputting into your mind, into your mentality? Let's work on that. Let's put the right systems into place. Let's get you moving and get that in the right, best shape it can be. And then you can then soar. And then you can then build on that. So a lot of it is about, I call it, we go back to like ground zero, where I'm asking certain questions. I'm exposing certain things. I'm prodding into areas you don't necessarily want to prod in. But they are necessary for you to be able to reveal certain things about your character, certain things about how you show up to the world, certain things about what you model to the world. And then once we can actually work on that, and then it's like, okay, now I recognize those things about myself. Now I recognize the different perspective of how I'm showing up to the world. I want to either change and build that if it's positive, or change and get rid of that and replace it with something else if it's negative. And that's what we do together. And then, I hear people like, "Oh, I did that," and my wife's like, I'm a brand new man, or my partner, I'm a brand new, because I'm communicating differently. I'm going to my organization and people are like, "Is everything okay?" Because I'm asking them the right questions. I'm actually caring about people. I'm starting to model a behavior, not write it down on a piece of paper, not have it on a wall that organizations tend to do. I am modeling a behavior in my organization that people are seeing, and that now making people take notice. Like, what is with that person? And now that's what I'm trying to embody within our organization, because people have seen me model it. Now we're going to put it into our organization. That's going to become our core values. This is how we're going to show up with each other. Now it's going to take time in organizations that massive takes years, but you start from the top and then you start going all the way down.
I love that, because we're speaking to people who are men who are leaders today, and people who will be leaders tomorrow. And one of the questions that I'm hearing from what you're saying as well, you said it before, is the whole thing of being able to sit down, shut up for a second, and let other people give you feedback and be like, I understand your intention is this, but actually this is how you're coming across. I understand that you're doing this, but actually it's having that effect instead. And being able to not be like, well, that's what you guys think, I have my opinion, or that's your truth, this is my truth. Hello, right? But are you man enough to actually be like, you know what? There are a number of people who are thinking this particular thing. And maybe in this particular case, I need to humble myself and change my mind. If we want to be a little bit more, if we want to use some biblical, more spiritual jargon, so to speak, that's called repentance. Where you literally change your mind and consider that, you know what, okay, you know what, I need to shift here. Another scripture that came to mind as you were speaking was, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Yeah.
So I lay that challenge for us brothers. Are we man enough to put the competition aside and to say, you know what, I need to make some changes here? Are we man enough to, like Sope was saying, go into the deep recesses of our hearts and deal with those things, or confront those things that we've locked away because we don't want to cry, or that we've locked away because it happened a long time ago, or that we've locked away because nobody seems to detect that there's something wrong? Are we man enough to deal with that? Are we man enough to have that conversation? Are we man enough to say sorry? Sometimes it says, listen, I'm going to be very real with you today. That is something that I had to deal with today. Am I man enough just to say sorry? Even though maybe I feel like I'm also offended. You feel what I'm saying? But am I man enough to say sorry?
That's a hard one.
Speak on it.
Hard one.
Speak on it.
Like just the simple words of "I'm sorry," like 2 words, but sometimes it gets stuck in your throat. Like it's hard to come out.
Yeah.
It can melt the situation so easily. And that goes back to ego, because at times when we rather be like, I need to be right about this.
Yeah.
But the need to be right and the need to show love and compassion and empathy and all that kind of stuff, that also needs to come first, especially depending on who you're dealing with. Because the need, you can be right every single time, and you can be lonely every single time if you don't learn how to be able to say, I'm sorry. And even there are times where you might actually have a point, but because you haven't broken down the barrier yet, and the barrier's up, and you're trying to make your point, I ain't gonna apologize because I'm trying to make the point. The point is not gonna get heard. But then when you're like, you know what, I've got a point to make, but I'm sorry for my part in this. I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry for how it came across. And then slowly the barrier comes down, and then you can be like, obviously, there are things that we need to talk about. The things that you said that offended me, the things that you said that hurt me. And I know we need to talk about them either right now or might be later, but I'm just letting you know that there are things on my mind. So I'm not saying dismiss your feelings. I'm not saying don't talk about them. But I'm saying learn to bring the barrier down so that when you are communicating, it comes across. So
Come on.
often we just hit and hit and hit and hit, and then we wonder why nothing ever changes because the barriers up, because
Mm,
we've not done what we need to do to bring the barriers down. So learn to
come on.
bring the barriers down, then you can get through to people to then get your point across, and then
Mm.
it's like, "Hey, I'm sorry too," and then and that all kind of flows in. So we have to learn to let the ego come
Yes.
come all the way down. It's not always about being right. Being right don't get you nowhere.
Mm. Come on, man. Come on. This is. It seems simple, but brother, big bro is putting us on game right now. I mean, even if we just take really quickly before I ask the question I mentioned before, even if you take the simple principle of modeling for your kids and
Mm,
apologizing to your children, I'm not gonna put this on the entire culture, but I realized this year that I'm actually a Niger man. I'm a Nigerian man, the child of a diaspora, but I'm a Nigerian man. Now, what that means is oftentimes, and I'm not putting it on the culture, I'm not saying that, this is everybody in the culture, but I've seen that my mum, who's a Nigerian, even from a very young age, cultivated the habit of apologizing to us if she did something wrong. But when you're in that position of authority, especially maybe as a man, it can be very easy to feel justified because of the authority. But then it takes the integrity and the humility to be able to model. You can't model humility with pride. You just can't. You can't do it. Do you feel what I'm saying? And so I think it's powerful that you're speaking here about bringing down other people's barriers by humbling yourself and modeling for them, leading by example, literally. But the question I wanted to ask you, Shope, was when it comes to um, these messages you've been giving leaders. You've been doing this for a while now.
mm.
And I'm keen to know from you, because as I said before, you're having to model for models, right? How has the messaging changed over time?
I think the messaging has changed over time because the requirements have changed over time.
Right.
So the reason and what I mean by that is when I talk to leaders now to the way I used to talk to them before, it's slightly different because their audience is different. So
Mm,
a lot of the audience that they are now starting to relate to is either from my generation or the Gen Z generation coming up.
mm,
And you can't approach everyone exactly the same way. You have to be able to learn how to relate to people, whether they're 10, 20, 30 years younger than you.
mm.
It's a relationship game. So
Yeah.
now my role is around, okay, how do you learn how to build bridges with those who are younger than you? How do you learn
Mm,
how to build bridges with those who are different to you?
mm,
Again, especially right now, especially what happened last year or so, we live in a time where there are certain organizations that are a lot more open to understanding and to learn about the different cultures, Black experience, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Like, how do you again learn how to build that bridge where for years you spend time, money, and effort tearing it down?
Wow. Yeah.
So you have to now you're building on ground that's not necessarily solid
Yeah.
because it's a bit shaky because it's like
Absolutely.
you have to repair and then build. That's what it is. You have to like repair
Mm.
the banks first. The banks have been bust. The bridge is down.
Yeah.
Spending years doing all of that. Now you have to build the banks back up and then build the bridge. So
Mm.
it's how do you do that? Which then comes, okay, how do I recognize the fact that how I used to talk, how I used to act was wrong?
Mm.
Where was that coming from? And that
Wow.
involves checking your ego, being humble, having some real talk conversations, which are not always necessarily uncomfortable. But like I said, I'm not, you're having conversations with me, or I'm showing up in your organization. I'm not there to make you comfortable.
Mm.
I'm there to drive you to be the best leader you can be because it's not about you, it's about your people. So if you made
Mm.
that decision to lead your people, then you need to lead yourself first. And that's why I'm there to help you lead yourself first so you can lead your people. If that means getting uncomfortable, we're going to get uncomfortable. We're going to have some real talk. We're going to work on moving you from where you are right now to where you need to be so you can be the best leader to other people. That's what we talk about, being models, being leaders. That's what it is. It's you're making, that's what I said, that you're making that choice and that decision to put yourself out there in a sense, which means you have to be willing to deal with the good, the bad, the difficult. And a lot of times you're iterating or you're changing in public. People are seeing that as well. So, which again is not always easy.
Not at all.
That shift happened in public. And as you know, we live in a culture where everyone's got an opinion. Yeah. So they'll bring up your old self.
Yeah, man. Oh my word.
Against you, even though when you're trying to do the right thing and change, and you have to learn to be able to like own it. Yes, that's who I was. Yes, that was how I thought. Yes, that was me with the wrong mentality. But now I'm trying to change. Now I'm trying to fix up. And just because you're saying certain things to me, I'm not necessarily going to change my approach, because now I understand who I am. Now I understand what I'm about. Now I understand I have a firm foundation in operating, and that's how I'm proceeding. So you can throw what you want at me, and yes, it's going to hurt, but I'm going to keep on going because I know what I'm trying to model to the rest of the world. So that's how the conversation has kind of changed, of helping those leaders to get to that point of, you know what, when people are throwing darts at you, I'm not going to retreat backwards. When the feelings of imposter come up, I'm not going to retreat backwards. Instead, I'm going to lean into it and do what I need.
Man, that is really good. That is really, really good. If you don't mind me shifting gears a little bit as well, I want to ask, you've spoken about when it comes to being your authentic self, right? When it comes to following Christ and being who he has called you to be. But now, what about when it comes to your own authentic personality? Let's say if you're quirkier than the average, wherever you're from guy is. Do you know what I'm saying? For me, it's Southwest London. For others, it might be, Northamptonshire or wherever. You know what I'm saying? How do you build the confidence to be your authentic self when it comes to things that are not necessarily to do with the gospel, like your personality or your sense of humor or your style and things like that? How do you build confidence in those areas?
This is probably, I know this is going to sound like probably the most unhelpful thing I can say, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Free the real, bro.
It comes from doing it, and I'm going to give you an example. So right now I do a lot of public speaking and do all that kind of stuff. But for years I said I hated being on the I'm a background kind of part. I like to operate in the scenes. You don't need to know what I do or see me. You just need to feel my impact. That's how I like to operate. That's who I was. But then years ago, I kind of felt like, you know what, the business you've created, you have to, because it was my business at that point in time, only me, I had to be the face of the business. People need to be able to relate to a person, to relate to me, to tap into me. And I was like, oh, I really don't want to do that. But I'm like, you know what? Okay, that's what I've been called to do. But I didn't just go from doing that to jump in on stage. I started off with doing, I used to do like Instagram videos.
Okay.
And it was just me chatting those days, like a minute. So you chat for a minute, then you roll up to IGTVs, and then you just start doing longer. And that helped me to really understand my style, how I like to present, how I like to come across, all that kind of stuff. But that was all training ground. Even though when I started doing that, I didn't even have it in my mind that I'm going to be doing public speaking. That was just me like stepping outside of my comfort zone and pushing myself.
Yeah.
And when I say just do it, it means that a lot of times we tend to overthink things. We tend to be like, it needs to look like this, act like that. I'm like, nah. What's my style? You know what? I'm gonna put a couple of things together and rock it out. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna see how it feels. Do I like how it feels? Yeah. Okay, let me go on road and see. Are the man them laughing at me? You know what? I might. Do I really want to deal with them laughing at me, or am I still gonna wear it? I'm gonna wear it. Right, cool. Right. You know what? I've gone out and that the girls aren't saying much. All right, cool. They're laughing. Like so,
That's
like
it is what it is. Yeah.
there's so many different layers that you can go to where you can be like, am I completely comfortable in doing something? But it
Oh
starts
yeah.
with you starting, and
Mm.
then you don't just start. You start and be consistent.
Mm.
That's how you start to grow in confidence in a particular area. You start to do it time and time and time again to the point where it becomes second nature to you. You're
Come
no
on.
longer thinking about it. A lot of
Mm.
times when we're thinking about stuff, we're like, okay, 1 + 1 = 2, and you're processing
Yeah.
the so therefore the way you're coming across might be either a bit slower, a bit less processed, a bit less refined. But when you're
Mm.
like ones too, because you've
Mm.
done it so many times, you know that you know how it works, you know how it flows, but you know how you flow. Then it's
Mm.
so it's about starting and then being consistent. But
Mm.
gonna go back to why are you doing it though?
Mm. Come on.
Because if you don't understand why you're doing it, if you don't understand the driver behind it, when your friends start laughing at you, you're gonna go back home and get changed and assimilate it with the rest of the crowd. When
Wow.
you want to start on, and it's like we see a lot with the culture. I work with a lot of founders, and one thing that comes up time and time again is they want to step into business and create businesses. There's one person I was working with. They actually had a thriving business that was making about 20K a month,
Mm.
but their mom was like, why are you in business? Go and become a lawyer." And mom kept on saying this because that was, and it wasn't okay. And we see this time and time again in culture,
Sure.
and that's because our parents have this linear approach of doing things. And a lot
Sure.
of times, even though people around us love us, they put their fears and their insecurities on their children, and that stops us from making a change. And
Wow.
that person reaching out to me like, I've got a good business, but my mom keeps on saying these things, and it's getting into my head, and I'm about to quit. I was like,
Mm.
"You quit? Like you need to move. You need to move your house." She's like,
Come
"Wait." I was
on.
like, Your mom's great. Keep on. That's your mom. But you need to move house. You cannot be in that environment and be successful. You need to step out of that and keep on doing what you need to do. She will get on board, and she might not. But regardless of that, you know she loves you and supports you. To this day, like my parents don't completely understand what it is I do. Left my corporate career, all that kind of stuff. But they'll be
Mm.
like, "We will pray for you. We love you. See you doing. We're proud of you. But it's your life." And
Mm.
when I spoke to her about that, she finally, and when she moved out, she's gone to levels. Like
Come
she's
on.
gone from making 20K a month and now she's making like 60 because she hasn't got that negativity around her anymore. And now
Mm.
and that's because she knew like I've been called to do this. But so easily we are all in that kind of environment where the rationale behind what we're doing, what we do, is not there. So when people
Mm.
say things to us, we just listen to them and we fall back.
Mm. Man, 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 man. I'm hearing so many different things. I'm hearing get people around you who'll be able to affirm your calling and encourage it. I'm also hearing that your why will take you to your Z. Your why will take you to your Z. Like literally, if you have the why and it's the proper why, that's what will hold you to the end. Literally. I mean, you see that. Sorry, bro. Did you want to say something? Go for it.
I was gonna say like even you saying that like one of my verses that I love the most is like your gift will make room for you, like Proverbs
Mm,
18:16. Hold on to that, man, because that's key, that's critical. Like your gift will make room for you if you let it. You
mm.
have a part to play in that.
Man, that is listen, bro. That is actually powerful stuff. Because for me, just hearing that, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? If the reason you're doing it is to please others, then of course you're not going to be consistent when the people aren't pleased.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst part about it is that people are themselves not consistent, even in their opinions. What they used to, slag off before, 10 years ago, now is the most celebrated thing in the world. Do you
Yep.
feel what I'm saying? People pleasing is not a good business model.
Mm.
People pleasing is probably not the best business model. Yes, the customer's always right, but if people pleasing is gonna be your why, man, you're gonna keep going back to A. You're gonna keep going back to A. So, man, I think that's a powerful thing. I wanna just by the way, guys, if you got questions, we want to see your questions in the comments. Send them through so that we can tackle them. But I want to just kind of throw this question to you, bro. you said that you've been married now for I think 14, 15 years. And you said that your kids are teenagers now. And you mentioned before that you're modeling for your kids, sorry, and probably for theirs in future too, to some degree. But I'm interested to know, in your time being married, what have you learned about the differences from your perspective about you modeling as a man and your wife modeling as a woman? So the theme for this month and this year is the model man. That's
Mm-hmm.
man versus boy. That's
Mm-hmm.
man maybe versus woman as well. Maybe we could look at it that way. So I'd love for you to explicitly speak on that. What have you learned about you having to model as a man whilst watching your wife model as a woman? What are some of the differences you've seen there and the things you've learned?
The things I've learned is not to try and be my wife.
Mm,
In all honesty, like there are ways that I talk to my kids. There are ways that we sit down, we chat it up, we chop it up, we have long conversation about different things. We break things up. That's how I that's how we talk. That's how me and my kids relate. The kids know me. The way my wife does it with them is different.
mm,
So they have their own ways of either they'll go out or they might go for a walk or they'll connect on different ways. And they will connect more with my wife, or they'll have more conversation with my wife than they have with me.
mm.
Because, just because of the way work is and all that kind of stuff right now. So they'll tend to see her more. However, I don't go and be like, oh, why are the kids always talking to you for?
Mm.
Because like even from that perspective, like you can easily be like, why are the kids always talking to you about this, about that?
Mm.
Actually, my wife will be with the kids a lot more because of just like pickups and different things like that. However,
Yeah.
when I look at it on a bigger scale, the conversations, the length of conversation that we have are very, very similar. They'll come
Mm.
to me about certain things. They'll go to my wife about certain things. And I don't
Yeah.
try and compete and trying to be like her or try and get involved in those kind of conversations, because how that even works is they might talk to her about certain things, but then we talk to each other. So
Yeah.
regardless of who's talking, we know what's going on with the kid.
Mm.
There are times when it's like I've had a conversation and she's like, is this something that I need to get involved with and all that kind of stuff after we talked
Mm.
about it? I was like, actually, no, I think it would, because it'll be good for them to actually hear you and your side on this conversation. And
Mm.
so there are times when she'll be like, many kids talks about this. Actually, I think you need to talk to them because of X, Y, Z. So we know and understand that we are two separate people raising this children together.
Mm.
We need to operate from our own strength, from our own
Mm.
rationale, from our own ideology, from our own way of looking at the world, because that's what the kids need. They don't
Mm.
need someone who's trying to be like someone else. They don't need daddy trying to be like mommy, act like mommy, talk like mommy. They need daddy to be daddy. They need mommy to be mommy. They need me, and there are times they'll laugh at it, but there are times when, even from an overall perspective of just something that's triggering me, when when I left my corporate role, like
Yeah.
a year ago, I literally like took a leap of faith and I leapt into nothing.
Wow.
Doing that inspired my wife to a year and a half later to leave what she was doing and to step into what she's doing right now. And she's happy, she's fulfilled, she's completely doing what she needs to do. But then by me doing one thing, she got influenced to do her own thing. My kids also got influenced to do their own thing.
Mm.
That's daddy doing what daddy needed to do. Obviously, I had a conversation with my wife about and that kind of stuff. But that's me modeling me as this is how I operate.
Mm.
My wife doing her and how she operates. If I took a step back and be like, oh, I'm not gonna take that move because it might be deemed a bit risky or just for whatever different reason. My wife would be doing what she's doing right now, and both of my kids when I stepped into certain things that they did. So
Mm.
when you talk about how you model that behavior, it's about recognizing that you have been blessed in that family to do you, to do the
Mm.
best you, to support your partner and vice versa. It works both ways as an absolute partnership. But a partnership works really, really well. Not when you have the two cooks in the kitchen trying to cook the same meal. A partnership works well when you got one person cooking, one person has cut up all the ingredients, and you've got that alignment working together. And that's how we work. I know what my role is. She knows what her role is. We talk about it on a regular basis. There are times when we might swap pennies around or not, but we play to our strengths, and that's how it works in our house.
Wow, that bro, that is beautiful. I love that you share on that because in a world where maybe we're seeing men become demasculinized or emasculated and things like that, or men need to be more like women, and and there are ways in which both can learn from each other and tap from each other's strengths, absolutely. But a man still needs to be a man, and most importantly a godly man, to model for the next generation of godly men coming. And so I love the fact that you just hone in there, and just re-emphasize the need for both, the need for your wife to be who she is in your relationship, in your parenthood, and for you as the husband to be who you are in your relationship and in parenthood. And I think, man, that's a powerful place even to end there. But just before we end, and I'll ask you to pray, would you please just let us know where we can find out more about you? Yeah, let us know, man.
Yeah, check me out on Instagram. You find me just Sope Agbelusi on there. The website is www.mindsetshift.co.uk. So you find a podcast on there as well. Or if you type in Everyday Leadership on any streaming platform, you get it up. And the same handle on LinkedIn, where I post a lot of my content on there as well.
Oh, that is fantastic, man. Really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, please, would you pray for us and just commit us into God's hands pertaining to the things you've spoken about today?
Father, I just want to thank you for tonight, for this conversation that we just had, just exploring how to be the best who you've called us to be, the best you've created us to be, to walk in our uniqueness, in our strength, in our authenticity, in every single area of our lives. Just pray for those who have watched that they will be blessed, that they will have learned something, and that they will to apply to their lives. And it just help us to model the right behaviors to those around us. Help us to model the right behaviors to ourselves. And most importantly, help us to represent you in every single area of our lives in the way that we show up to the world. Amen.